Hi, this is Buzz Dixon, and you're listening to G.I. Joe, a real American headcast. Yo, Joe!
Can the world oppose the deadliest of foes? Cobra! Joes will risk it all to end the evil call of Cobra. They never give up, they never say die. Walking tall with banners high, they sound the battle cry. There's trouble over land and sea and air. G.I. Joe is there.
G.I. Joe, the Real American Headcast, is the code name for Aaron's daring, highly trained headcast. Its purpose? To podcast about G.I. Joe, Fighting Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe.
And welcome to G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. This is episode 53. As usual, I am your host, Aaron Moss, a.k.a. General Head. And joining me, we have returning from his long hiatus. The lawyers have worked out their deals, and I'm not allowed to touch them anymore. We have Jared Albrecht, the artist, drawer, whatever guy.
That's a prescription for danger.
a.k.a. Death Probe. Hey, Jared, how you doing, buddy?
Sorry, I was getting my sound effects ready. Hey, man, I am excited to be back to talk some G.I. Joe. And there's nothing I like better than flag officers in the heat of combat. And I believe we're going to get a little flag officer in the heat of combat action in this issue. So
flag on flag combat. Wait a minute, that's a difference.
That's a whole thing. For those of you at home that don't know what a flag officer is, that's like a general or an admiral, like the higher ranks. So I think we got some of that coming our way this issue. If I read the right issue, it's a gamble.
It's a toss-up with you, 50-50.
It's a gamble.
Read the issue. Did you read the right issue? Are you on the right show?
I don't know.
This is Aaron's show. This isn't one of your shows, so let's be sure we're on the right page.
That's all right. It doesn't make a huge difference, to be honest.
Yeah, I listen to your shows. True story. So anyways, also joining us, we have Sir Pantaloons, a.k.a. Brad Abraham.
Now, let me take a wild guess here. You're Brett, right?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Aaron. I'm Sir. As I explained earlier, I'm Sir Pantaloons today because it's bitterly cold here in the Northeast, and I would have been Sir Pantless, but then I might have caught a chill. So, but I'm glad to be here.
We can't have that. Glad to have you back, man.
No, we
all get a little chill when he goes pantless.
And thank you. That's our show for the day. Hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, we crossed the line from family friendly to not.
That's anytime I have any of you guys on here, myself included. So, anyways, we're here not to talk about Brad's pants and no pants. We're here to talk about G.I. Joe issue 53. I'm sure Brad's read this one, and Jared, like we was talking about, it's a 50-50 toss-up. Over the chat, we have a quick hello from Mr. Kevin Reitzel himself.
Hey, Kevin.
Show, guys. Again, the lawyer's talking with his lawyers right now, and they're trying to work out a deal because, again, inappropriate touch when we met in person. I don't know. It's a whole thing. But anyways, hey, Kevin, we're going to miss you, man, but glad you could say hi. So, yes, we are here to talk about issue 53. So, the cover date on this one was November of 1986. The on sale date was August the 5th of 1986. Cover price was 75 cents. The title of this one was called Pitfall. The writer for this was Larry Hama. Penciler, Rod Wiggum. Inker, Andy Muschinsky. Letterer, Joseph Rosen. Colorist, George Roussos. And the cover, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, was Mike Zeck by himself.
Zek, just Zek.
Yeah, it doesn't have quite the ring as Baby Zach, but you know. And the editor on this one was Bob Harris. So first we'll talk about the cover, which in the chat, Ken was asking what's the cover. This cover is basically, it's kind of a minimalistic cover. It's got Snake Eyes holding up I'm assuming it's an Uzi, close-up frame of him, and around him are different Marvel characters. Again, if you're in...
Oh, yeah, the border covers.
Yes,
that was
yes.
such a cool time in
This
comics.
was the 25th anniversary of Marvel, and I want to say it was Assistant Editors Month, if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. The assistant editor on this, since I did mention that, it was Bobby Chase. But, anyways, the Snake Eyes got the yellow background. Jared, what are your thoughts on the cover of issue 53?
Oh man, it's beautiful simplicity is what it is. It just that, you know, again, it's a Zek cover. I've said 100 times on the show, the Zek covers era is my favorite era of G.I. Joe. And so as soon as I see that and I go, oh my gosh, Zek on Snake. I have a t-shirt of this cover, by the way. I have a t-shirt of that drawing and it's laid over the Arishikage symbol.
Oh, I've seen that one. Very nice.
I love it. And yeah, no, it's, again, beautiful simplicity. It's not high action, it's not high energy, but it's very like, especially in that month where they were doing those border covers. I remember a Black Knight one on the Avengers that was cool. I mean, even some of the Star comics got in on it, like Heathcliff and stuff. I think ended up doing.
Yeah, I think any book put out by Marvel this month.
Month, yeah, like it was just a neat kind of thing. I know guys and gals out there that collect just that cover series with the border. And I just think it's, as far as that goes, it's G.I. Joe's contribution to that month was definitely top tier as far as those covers went. And I don't know there's a bad one in the bunch. To say top tier,
right? Yeah,
I like it a lot.
And real quick from the chat, Kevin asked, is Jared drawing Tomax or Zaymont?
I haven't decided whether he's going to have a scar or not, so just hang in there.
So, Brad, thoughts on this issue or this cover?
Well, I never thought I'd use this word to describe a G.I. Joe comic cover, but hot. That was for Kevin, but this is, yeah, as you said, it's the 25th anniversary of Marvel Comics in this particular calendar month. So every cover was one of these character portraits. And if you go online and just look them up for Marvel 25th anniversary covers, you can sort of see the range of all. I mean, I think what they mostly did was just pick a character, or the most popular character, and just kind of gave them like a portrait. When I looked at it, I thought, this would be a great poster. This would be a great T-shirt. Apparently, Jared has the T-shirt, so I guess I wasn't off the mark there. But it's like I said, it's not like you said, it's not this dynamic action cover, but it still works for this issue. And while I wouldn't call it an all-time great cover for this series, but in a way, it kind of is, because it just really captures that moment in G.I. Joe and in Marvel. And at least in my life, because I remember going to the comic shop to pick this issue up and seeing just all these 25th anniversary covers on the stands, which only would have happened in this particular month. So it was pretty impactful just to see all the uniformity of the Marvel books there. And this is also the issue that arrived just as I was moving from Greensboro back to Canada, which was, let's say, a much happier time in my life than moving from Canada to Greensboro, because North Carolina and I got along about as well as North Carolina does with South Carolina. So that kind of stands out and sort of links this issue to me, this period in my life. But I had a question, though, for you guys, is this: if it wasn't the 25th anniversary of Marvel this particular month, and it was not a 25th anniversary Marvel cover, is there like a particular image or moment from the book you think would have made a good cover for this one?
Jared, do you have anything in mind for this issue if they didn't have this cover? Is there anything?
I'm flipping through it now because I wish that I'd read it.
I wish you'd read it too.
All right. Well, you know what? Peek ahead at what I'm going to tell you about favorite art later on. I like this moment where Flint takes on a whole bunch of eels.
Yes.
And somehow makes it out because he's Flint. And so I think that would have made a cool cover, like Flint just barreling into a whole bunch of eels, and I think that'd be a cool moment for the cover. So a little sneak peek ahead at my favorite page of art, by the way.
And I'm going to go with probably something from page 8, where the as Jared called them, the flags. Is that correct? And
flag officers, yeah,
is fighting. And I mean, bottom page 8, we get one of them holding. I'm going to hold it up to the camera for those at home, holding up guns, shooting at the cobras. As they're coming at him. Something like that, showing, or maybe showing all 3 of the generals or whatever they are, and Hawk holding down, battling, showing bullets flying all over the place. I think that'd been a cool cover. And if you have something, Kevin, you want to throw in the chat, let us know what you think. Brad, what are your thoughts on that? What would you like to have seen?
Oh gosh, I asked the question. I didn't have an answer for it. I mean, that's
Okay,
not
never
how it
mind.
works.
Oh, look how
Really quickly.
clever I am.
No.
Everybody else deal
I
with
got
it.
one. I got one here. The bottom of page 7. I'll hold it up, and I'll take care to not crease the book or anything, because Kevin's. I'll describe it very easy, because people who are listening to this can't see what I'm showing. But it's the bottom of page 7, and it's got Hawk and the other generals sort of pinned down in the pit, and there's a rectangular panel at the bottom of the page, and there's a red alert sign above, and way in the background, a nice bit of 3-point perspective, you have the bats kind of converging and firing on them. And I think that would have been a really interesting cover issue, some variation of that, where you'd have some of the Joes pinned down in the pit, have a sign, something designated that the pit is being attacked by Cobra, and having it look like they're about to get overwhelmed. I think that would be a pretty cool image to splash on the cover.
Great. That's a great one, too. That would be a good one, too. I like both of those ideas, along with mine, of course. But as far as myself, yeah, I like this cover. Like I said, I picked this one up. Originally, I picked this up in a 3-pack from Kmart. So one side had the Unmasking, issue 55, and that's the reason I got it, because of that. And then the other side had, I think it was issue 51 was showing, with the Thunder Machine and the Dreadnoks on it. And then this was the bonus, if you will, third issue I couldn't see. But yeah, I think for what it is, it's a great cover. Like Jared was saying, all of the covers this month were fantastic. I was looking online, and yeah, they had one for Care Bears, had it, and Muppet Babies, Masters of the Universe. So yeah, any book that was published by Marvel this month had the face cover. So like I say, it's not as dynamic as we would normally expect or want, but for what they did, yeah. And Snake Eyes, especially at the time, was a great choice. So let's give this some ratings on 1 to 5 Yojo Colas. Again, 1 being it sucks, 3 being an average cover, and 5 being something like, that you want to blow up and hang on your wall as a poster. Jared, 1 to 5 Yojo Colas.
I believe I would make a T-shirt out of this, because I have one. And it's just too iconic to not give the full 5 for me. I know Brad's not going to do it, so I got to get the average up. So full 5 from me.
Well, very nice. And Sir Pantaloons, Brad himself, how many Yojo Colas do you give this?
I give it a 4 for reasons already stated. It's not an all-time great cover. It has certainly ticked up in my estimation based on Jared's comments and just by looking at it more. And if I could have that whole cover blown up, put on the wall, but have it be with all the stuff on it, all the Marvel characters and everything else, I think that's a pretty striking image. Just again to recall the period in Marvel Comics history and that period in my personal history. So yeah, it's a definite 4.
Very nice. And I think I'm gonna go right between you guys, and I'm gonna give it a 4.5. It gets a little bit higher marks because, like I said, it's I know I get out halvesies. Like I say, it gets higher marks because, like I say, it's one of those I remember from that grab bag I picked up, and the story itself also, to me, weighs in on the cover, even though it's not really part of this cover. When I see this cover, I remember the story, and it's just fantastic. So I'm going to give it a 4.5. So an average is 4.5 with the 4 and the 5. So very good. We're going to move on to the synopsis. The synopsis on this one: as an attempt to win the loyalty of the Cobra troops, Cobra Commander leads an attack on the G.I. Joe base, the Pit. The Joes have been suspended, so as Cobra attacks, they are mostly attacking a deserted base. Hawk, along with a couple of generals and an admiral, fight a losing battle inside the Pit. Cobra Commander and Desto are in the bottom of the Pit when it completely collapses, killing them and never hearing from them again. So let's go and get some thoughts on this issue. Jared. Actually, let's start with Sir Pantaloons. Let you work on your drawing there of someone that may or may not be one of the twins. Brad, do you have thoughts on this issue?
Oh, of course I have thoughts. If I didn't have thoughts, I wouldn't be here. I had a question, though, and this is not a specific question, just in general. Has anybody ever done like a G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero comic timeline? Like looking at the entire Marvel run and trying to determine just how much time passes in this particular world and telling the story? And I'm building into something here because you could surmise that the first 10 issues are largely self-contained, so they could have taken place over a matter of months. Issues 11 to 19 are more or less continuous from after the Arctic mission ends to the whole episode in Sierra Gordo to that first battle at the pit. And that may all take place a matter of weeks or maybe a month at the most. But what I'm getting at here is, did nobody in Cobra, when planning this mission, take a look and go, wait a minute, Fort Wadsworth? Didn't we attack that place back in issue 19? And I say this because, I read a book some years ago about the history of Marvel Comics, and in it, the author made a pretty convincing case that every piece of Marvel media from 1962 to the present takes place in a real-world chronology of maybe 7 or 8 years. And that's thinking of all the issues that pick up immediately after the preceding, factoring in, that's taking into account all the overlapping storylines. In the real world, we had to wait a month for Daredevil to confront Bullseye, but in the world of the comic, it was maybe a second or two. And that's kind of the same with a lot of the G.I. Joe comics. But, that's just something that I was always kind of curious about, if there was an actual, anybody tried to math it out, science it out, and say, okay, so the timeline kind of spans this rough period. I mean, obviously the characters don't age, but that's just the magic of comics. But big boring digression aside, I think this is kind of an issue people tend to sleep on a bit when talking about G.I. Joe, because for 53 issues, the location of the headquarters has been a top secret. Now it's out and it gets destroyed, much as I like Fort Wadsworth as a location. It probably was getting a little stale by this point, and I'm sure Larry was happy to let it go so he could, take the Joe team and move them elsewhere, which is not a bad idea, actually. At a certain point, just the storytelling becomes a little stagnant. We've lost Springfield as a base of operations for Cobra, and it seems only appropriate that the Joes lose their HQ. But overall, I mean, what a great issue. It just moves constantly, and it's like a shark in the water, just constantly swimming and constantly searching for prey. And I can't really think of any weak moment in the issue. And if there's only a criticism I have, it's a very minor one, and it's really in regards to the old soldiers, the old generals who are descending into the pit at the beginning with Hawk to talk about why the team was suspended. And then we don't really, outside this issue, it's not like a General Austin or a General Flag. We had a chance to get to know who these guys are. So it's great to see them strap in the weapons and throw down against the invading Cobra forces. But when they start falling, you kind of wanted to know a little bit more about them. But then again, maybe just knowing enough about them in the context of this issue is enough, where they debate the threat that Cobra represents, then they find they are in fact wrong, and they do have to kind of fire back and stop talking. I think that the other thing I would say that doesn't 100% work for me, but I can let it go, is despite the seriousness of what happens, this issue is quite funny in a lot of ways. There's a lot of great little jokes and gags here and there. Flint coming in all beat to hell and talking about signing an authorization in his own blood if he needs to, and the Joe's kind of trashing the chaplain's school and grabbing all the weapons and going to town and everything, and the chaplain's freaking out. And I think that's kind of a lot of fun as well. It feels very small, I guess, as an issue. We kind of jump right into it. There's not like today where you'd have 2 or 3 issues, stretching it out over months. I think it was a good decision on Larry's part just to kind of jump in and just get through it, because you can kind of sense that he had other stories he wanted to tell and kind of clear the deck, so to speak, and start fresh. And I think, it's a great issue. But one thing I think that may take it down just a little bit, and it's the lack of any major casualties on the Joe side. In issue 19, the last time Cobra attacked the pit, we lost Quinn and we lost General Flag, and here I wonder if we might have done well to maybe lose one or more of our Joes. I know Hasbro probably wouldn't allow them to kill off an action figure because those guys get repaints and new versions, but one kind of wonders if the story might be remembered a little more fondly, or at least more memorably, if we lost someone like one of the original members, like Grunt or Short Fuse, someone, or Grand Slam, someone who hadn't really been present and active in the issue for some time, who kind of went down defending the pit and defending the other Joes from a Cobra attack. I thought that's something that might have kicked it up into classic issue territory, kind of like 19 is for me. But on a whole, overall, great issue, lots of fun, and it kind of represents a bit of a conclusion in a way for all the story arcs that we've been following for the last 20 or so issues from 33 onward. Everything seems to kind of come to a header here, and we've paid off some storylines, and now we're kind of heading into new territory. So it's going to be fun to go through that.
I was looking, I'm not seeing any timeline of the events. That maybe somehow, maybe if we get a few minutes, maybe I'll put some together at some point. But yeah, I'm not seeing any timeline at this point showing how long, it takes between issues or for our run to happen. So I never really thought about it that way. While it's been going on for several years, real world wise, it's probably only been maybe a year or so for the Joes. So good point.
Yeah.
See, and that's why I have you on. Here's your good point for the day. So I can disconnect Brad now. I mean,
I'm allowed one.
and going from someone that makes a good point to someone that doesn't, Jared. I mean, hey, Jared, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, man. Yeah, I'm a little tired of Brad coming on here and showing off. Oh, look at me. I read the comic. Oh.
So, Jared, if you would have read the comic, what would you have thoughts on?
It's starting to piss me off. If I had read it, my first thought about it, and Brad did a great job of sort of covering all the bases, so I don't know that I have a ton to add, but just from the military point of view, I just am tickled pink at like the, what's the word I want? Brad, you're a writer. You're going to have to help me out. I got it. I found it. The disdain that Larry has for Chaplin's assistants is insane. Like, he went all in on tearing those poor guys down, man.
So is that something a lot of military people have, like a disdain towards the military chaplain?
I mean, there are Chaplin's assistants, and it's like part of the religious calling. So they know that, I mean, they don't like, I've never seen them so overtly like made fun of before. Because I mean, it's like picking on people that work in the church, man. It's just some level it feels wrong.
If I may add,
yeah,
I was going to say I totally agree with you. I kind of glossed over that point on mine. I think he's got something against the chaplain's assistants. They've always been a background thing, but here they're front and center. They're talking about in this and in previous issues about doilies and tea cozies, and their names are Percy and Cecil, which is they're manly names like Julian and Andre. It's the comic relief. I mean, you almost want to say, oh, he had them in mind from the beginning, because he was going to have Cobra attack the pit, and he wanted them kind of running around, grab the tea cozy, grab the teapot, let's get out of here. They're shooting at us.
And I mean, I can imagine that, like, as a Vietnam vet, that is the hardest and most, that's grizzling. And that's not something the chaplain's assistants typically have to do. So I could see where, you might, that disdain could grow. But I was like, man, he's giving them both barrels here, man. And, I mean, it was funny. I ain't picking on the guy. It was funny. But then again, I'm not a chaplain's assistant. So if I was, I probably wouldn't think it's as funny. But anyway, that was certainly funny. The rest of the issue, the one thing that I kind of took away from it was I was like, oh, this is sort of like the blossoming romance between Flint and Lady J. And over at the Longbox Crusade, plug, G.I. Joe Chronicles, we just got done with the Devil's Due run where, spoiler alert, Lady J does not make it out alive. And now we're into the America's Elite run, and Flint is having a hard time coming to terms with that. And so it's just neat that we're covering that at this exact same time that I'm on the show with you, Aaron, and I'm seeing the beginning of the relationship. And I just thought that was pretty cool. And how kind of ham-handed Flint was, he's not good at it, but we all know he's going to Forrest Gump that lady, which basically means you just hang around until she gives in, right? You just keep hanging around until she gives in.
IRS, I used to work with a guy that very much reminds me of Flint. Hey, baby, what's going on? You want me and you to look up?
And they initially just hate him, but like the longer he hangs around, they just get used to his ways, and there you go. All the other stuff Brad said, I'll just tack on the piece about the chaplain's the vendetta that Larry has against chaplain's assistants. And I just thought it was cool to see those early days of Flint and Lady J, because honestly, when I think about G.I. Joe, it's not really a romance book, but when I think about the romance of G.I. Joe, I think about Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Flint and Lady J. And of course, Destro and Baroness.
Yeah, I can see all three of those. Yeah, because especially from the cartoon, they seem more of a couple, where here they're just starting to hit it off, and well, he's trying to hit it off, and she's.
I'm sure he thinks he's doing really well.
And you can tell. I don't know if he's making some headway or what it is, but as Lady J runs away, if you notice on that panel, something that they did really good on it is that she has you can see tears in her eyes. It looks like they're on bottom of page 9 when she runs away. Okay, tough guy, live up to your act. And you can see tears in her eyes as she leaves Flint to get the hell beat out of him by these.
Yeah, I mean, as far as she's concerned, he's probably not going to make it.
Yeah, it's last.
I mean, the odds are just not with him. And she's like, whew, I don't have to put up with this jackass anymore.
Has to get rid of Shipwreck. But no, like I said, yeah, I wasn't buying this off the stand. This around the time I picked up issue 58, which started my G.I. Joe obsession, which led to this podcast eventually. But I did pick this up, and I did like I say, this. There was this one. They skipped 54, which is kind of a filler issue, and then they went to 55, which is kind of an afterword to this one, and starting the new quota. Or status quo. So I do like that. Like I think was Brad was saying, this is kind of a status quo change because they've been in the pit for the last 53 issues. Now they've finally destroyed the pit, and they're going to go mobile for a while at least. So I do like that change. Like Jared mentioned, I do like the Flints and Lady J, in quotes, romance. Some would say maybe she's getting a restraining order on him. It's hard to say, but
it was the 80s, man, Yeah,
that was more accepted back then. But yeah, no, yeah, I Cobra Commander, he's like, you know what? Spencer's trying to take over. I think, if I lead the charge down there, I can win them back and I can become, Cobra Commander once again, as it were. And, and I like as he takes off, I forget who it was. I'm trying to find it now. Someone was asking Serpentor if that's going to make any change to his plans with Cobra Commander stepping forward like that. Zorana. Yeah, such a display of loyalty. I'm almost touched. Does this turn events pet a crimp in your plans, Serpentor? And he's like, hardly. So
nah, I'm good.
I do like that. They're always pitting and scheming behind each other's backs. And Serpentor has a plan. Cobra Commander tries to kill the plan to go around that. And as we've said, Cobra's biggest drawback, or not necessarily drawback, but their biggest enemy, I guess, is Cobra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, they're bad guys, so they're not. But if they would learn to work together and maybe trust one another and actually go for the common good, as it were, they might actually be a little more successful. But again, as we've talked about in the comics, Cobra is a lot more successful than he is in the cartoon, but a lot of things more successful than the cartoon is. So as far as Cobra's. But no, this is a great issue. I do. Yeah. The firefight. And I'm been thinking about what Brad said about wish we would have maybe seen the general and admiral earlier in the series and maybe got a little more backstory on them before we kill them off. And I can see where Brad's coming from. I do agree with that to a degree, but I also like the fact that, this is really the first time we're dealing much with them, and they're here, they're to shut G.I. Joe down once and for all because, they invaded this town of Springfield, or at least the one general, who was it? Ryan seemed very much wanting to shut them down when the other two are like, well, what about this? Well, there's circumstantial evidence. We've got Cobra vehicles at the airport. We got this footage of Serpentor. Circumstantial. Give me living, breathing proof. And just a few minutes later, he gets that living, breathing proof firing at him. So I do like that, he's calling out and saying that, he wants some actual proof that Cobra exists. And the next thing we got bats falling down on him, and Cobra Commander and Destro both coming in to fight to the death, it looks like, as the pit blows up around them, and we're assuming it collapses on them. And as I said earlier, we never see them again. So I guess Serpentor gets the Cobra ship leadership by letting Cobra Commander and Destro die. But it's just it's a great story. Like I say, it's a kind of an ending and the beginning of a new era for G.I. Joe. And like I say, it may be partial because this is when I got into the comics, but this run in here, the 50s, is one of my favorite eras of G.I. Joe. I like it. I really like G.I. Joe up until the early 100s or mid 100s, and we'll talk about that in the future sometime. But when we get to that, but yeah, I know a lot of people say this is probably the era it starts dropping off. I still enjoyed it after here. So, but then again, I am a bit insane at times. But yeah, great issue, and yeah, I can't wait to continue reading the story. That is G.I. Joe issue 53. Unless you guys have thoughts on this, we can move on to the Real American Hero.
The Real American Hero.
the real American hero is a Joe or Cobra that you think did something extra, or even a civilian or someone else in the story that you think did an extra special job that deserves special recognition. So, Brad, who's your real American hero for this issue?
Well, I think for this month, it's got to be Flint. He takes a beating. He keeps on ticking. He goes from seriously macking on Lady J to fighting off a phalanx of Cobra eels, being left for dead, getting the upper hand, charging into the battle with his face all battered and bloodied, and rallying the troops. And then if you were kind of on the best point in the comic book, I think at this point you're like, okay, he's not that bad. And I think Lady J probably feels the same way too.
Yeah, I can see that. And Jared, do you have a real American hero?
Mine is clearly also going to be Flint. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, do you think he took that whooping on purpose to impress her so that he could, what he could do. Did he go all in on that investment? I like to think he did.
Personally, I'd like to think that was the real American hero in him that,
I mean, it can be both, right?
It could be, yeah. Very much knowing Flint, it probably is. And yeah, you know what? We're going to make a trifecta. I'm going to give my real American hero to Flint also. For like you guys have said, yeah, he took, like a Timex, he took a beating or took a lick and kept on ticking. They thought he had him down. So that's one guard to kill him off or one eel to kill him off. And he's like, I don't think so. Not today. And then he just stumbles into the motor pool where he's like, you know what? Here's your authorization in blood.
I like how they gave the eel like just a bit of personality too. He's like, why do I always have to kill him? I don't like doing it because I work in a slaughterhouse.
That's why slaughterhouse. I like working at a slaughterhouse. Doesn't get a lot of feels like I think you do. That makes it easy. Yes.
Yeah, Flint was like, I think you like this. And oh, by the way, today's your last day.
So it looks like Flint is our real American hero for this issue because we all three of us decided that. Very good choices, guys. And so that was an easy one. So moving on, the next one again is something I stole from another better show than mine. Page of art. If you could have one page of art from this book, which page would it be? Jared, do you have a page of art from this book?
I do. I kind of tipped my hand earlier. I just really there's a lot to like in here. So I'm interested to see what you guys come up with. But I like the victorious Clint. I know a Flint. It's only one panel, really, but I mean, at least you get the build up to it, where he beats the slaughterhouse eel. I just love that beat up, shirt's torn, but he's got a rifle and a knife, and it looks like he's ready for business. So I just think that's really a cool moment. So I will pick that one in a issue that's chock full of amazing stuff, and I will take the opportunity while I have the mic to say, Rod Wiggum is not a name that comes up a lot in comic book art discussions. He's not a Todd McFarlane or an Eric Larson or a Jim Lee, but man, if this guy isn't consistent and having to draw a bazillion different characters and a bazillion different vehicles and the pit and the bats and all this technology, tip of the cap to Rod Wiggum. He is an unsung hero of comics.
Very nice. I can't agree with you more. Well, I could. I choose not to. Because then, people start talking.
You got a reputation.
He likes Jeremy. No. Anyway, Brad, do you have a page of art that you'd like out of this book?
I do. And I also echo what Jared just said about Rod Wiggum. I think he's probably my second favorite Joe artist after Herb Trimpe, for the reasons stated. His work is very, very consistent. And I think he does everything well. He draws characters well. He draws action well. He's really good at just drawing hardware and just like the fun, cool military type of stuff. But even just looking at pages like page 3, where we're in the chaplain's assistant's tea room reading area. Again, Larry really does not like chaplain's assistants, but there's just some great expressions. There's some great bits of action with Spirit and whoever else throwing axes at the dartboard with Cobra Commander. I see a few bullet holes in there as well. So there's a lot of really great details, which is, I was going to go with the penultimate page 21, where the explosion happens, because you got some great sound effects on it. You got a panel at the top where the ground, you can kind of see it buckling upwards, and there's a karoomf sound, and then it falls into a pit naturally, a pit of it with a rumble. And then there's a third panel where the truck carrying the surviving Cobra is crashing out of the motor pool with a krathum But I'm not going to choose that one. I'm going to go back to page 3 with the chaplain's assistants hiding behind a chair as the Joes trash their poor reading room, their tea room in the reading area. And I would like to point out one little thing on this page to Jared is we see Beachhead without his balaclava on. Panel 2,
Yes,
right
yes, I noticed
between
that
Gung
as
Ho
well. I
and
was like,
Roadblock.
what?
I think that's the first time. So, and I know that Alabama beat Auburn on yesterday's game. So congratulations.
That'll be enough out of you. Yeah, that was cool until Brad ruined it by bringing up the game.
Yeah, I was going to bring up about Beachhead being without his mask, and then I forgot when it got to my turn. So, thank you, Brad. Great.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great. Like you both said, there's a lot of great pages in here. I too was looking at page 21. Again, the collapsing pit into the pit and the truck zooming away. But I'm actually going for the final page of the story, page 22, where we get Hawk and who is that, Austin, whoever it is, climbing the water tower or coming down from the water tower. And there's that end panel with the sweat beating off of was it Austin? I forget his name now. But the one general that survived says he's like, you know what? G.I. Joe's reinstated. You guys can become a mobile outfit, so this won't happen again. Just a great page. So yeah, I'm gonna pick page 22.
General Hollingsworth. General Hollingsworth is the last man standing next to Hawk. So
okay, yes, I saw that, but I didn't reread that page. I saw General Hollingsworth. I thought maybe he was referring to one of the other guys. Hollingsworth, thank you very much. Again, Brad comes to the rescue.
Nobody likes to show off.
Makes it much easier to get rid of Jared when I'm tired of. I mean,
I've got jokes and jokes and jokes and jokes.
I wanted to make a quick mention of the bullpen bulletins page if you have the original issue in hand. In this particular month, they're really pushing the new universe because they have a report on the new universe part 2 by none other than Mr. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief and creator of the new universe, where he talks up the new books. One of which was the only new universe book I think I read, which was Merc, which was about a mercenary named Mark Hazard, who was a Vietnam veteran who's gone on to become a soldier of fortune, selling his fighting abilities to military causes he believes in or at least can live with. It says it has cost him his wife, his son, the love of his parents. The other Mercs are Mark's only family now, but what choice does he have? Combat is what Mark Hazard does best. And as I recall, it's a pretty good book. It only ran about 12 issues, kind of like all the new universe titles, I think. But spoiler alert: they controversially killed Mark Hazard off in the penultimate issue of the book, which was kind of a shocker. But that was kind of interesting to see. And the other thing I want to point out is in the checklist this was the month for the first issue of the G.I. Joe universe, which was a limited series, but it didn't come out as the G.I. Joe universe. It came out under a different title because I was looking at this going, what the heck is that? It sounds really familiar. And I had to go digging through my long box to pull out and confirm that it was in fact the G.I. Joe Order of Battle, which was a 4-issue series run that was illustrated by Herb Trimpe, and it was kind of sort of expanded versions of the information that was on the file cards. Just sort of where each individual Joe was born, what their specialty is, what their actual name is, and just some character history of them. So it kind of points to where G.I. Joe was at this point in 1986, which is still a force, because you had the Order of Battle, you had the regular book, you had special missions, and I think they were probably doing reprints of G.I. Joe at the same time. And I think G.I. Joe versus the Transformers was in the near future, but I guess we'll get into that when we get into that, if we get into that.
Yes, I plan on covering that. The Order of Battle and the versus Transformers were on Bravo Team. Interspace between special missions. So, and also we're talking about ads and whatnot in the book. I'm also going to bring up there was an ad for Dungeons and Dragons, which I had that box set back in the day, the red box set, the basic rules. It was fun times. And I've still played D&D to this day. So very nice.
D&D's nuts.
You slipped in there and
we all have our roles on this show. Okay?
I have one stupid job on this show. Let me do it. Oh, thank you for sliding in a D's nuts joke.
That's what
it's been a while, and yeah, I appreciate that. So we're going to take a quick break while I get me a refill on my bourbon. And Rob's play some promos for some podcasts, and we'll be right back with more G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Hey,
Hey everybody, Michael Bailey here with a trailer announcing the return of It All Comes Back to Superman. Well, sort of the return of It All Comes Back to Superman. Desperate to stay relevant and chase those sweet, sweet podcasting dollars, I've decided that since all of the shows on the Fortress of Baileytude Podcasting Network are moving to a new hosting platform, that I would start It All Comes Back to Superman over with a new number one and name. So really, this is a trailer for the sort of new, pretty much the same as before,
It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2.
It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2 will be... It's gonna be... Oh, God. Are you hearing this music that's playing right now? In all honesty, I chose it because I thought it had a good trailer feel, but the more I'm sitting here listening to it, the more it sounds like something... You know what it sounds like? It sounds like something you would hear in the background of a motivational video your job made you watch that is full of corporate jargon and buzzwords and useless affirmations trying to convince you that working there is some freaking higher calling. Or, you know what else it sounds like? It sounds like it would be behind an ad on YouTube that is trying to sell you something that is supposedly life-altering, but in reality is at best useless and at worst dangerous and probably should be illegal. Yeah, you know what? I'm done with this music. Yeah, it's over. I'm just gonna go with the music I've licensed for the show. I should have just done that from the beginning. There. That's better. Anyway, It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2 will be pretty much like the first series, just with a convenient new numbering system. Episodes will be erratic at first, because it's me, but hopefully by the end of 2024 they should be released on a regular basis. Some episodes will be one-and-dones. Some will be part of rolling series with names like The Earth 2 Superman Files, and Close Maketh the Villain, the superpowered makeovers of Lex Luthor and Brainiac. There might even be holiday specials every once in a while, as well as episodes from the previous feed making their way over to the new one, just to kind of freshen them up a bit. No matter the subject, movies, comics, action figures, prose, the show will be all about my love and fandom for the greatest fictional character ever created.
It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2.
Part of the Fortress of Baileytude Podcasting Network. Available through Libsyn on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and other podcatching platforms. Show notes and other bits and bobs will still be available on posts over at www.fortressofbaileytude.com.
Siskoid watches a lot of movies, like a lot. So now he has his own movie podcast, or several. Siskoid Cinema is your one-stop umbrella for a variety of shows like Fade In, exploring the first films of famous actors and directors.
This is a joke, right?
On Borrowed Time, discussing all your favorite time travel movies.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
And No Escape from Kurt Russell, a dissection of the man, the mystique, and the movies.
There goes a perfectly good bumper sticker.
And more. Siskoid Cinema, a proud member of the Fire and Water Podcast Network.
Hi, Maggie. What are you writing?
Oh, hi, John. I'm writing down ideas for a new promo for Married with Comics.
I like our old promo.
But the clips from the old promo are from an episode that's never even aired. It's lazy podcasting.
But we're incredibly lazy podcasters. And the only thing you've written down are the words, come up with ideas for the new promo.
Well, I guess we'll just have to fall back on Plan B then.
B for blackmail professional podcast guest Tim Price into doing a Mephisto bit?
Exactly.
Greetings, inter-nerds. It is I, Mephisto, ruler of the Netherworld and prince of all evil. I am taking this time for my evil machinations to issue a warning to everyone in podcast land. Avoid Married with Comics with John and Maggie at all costs. They're a despicably lovable pair of newlyweds who talk about comic books and other areas of geekdom with enthusiasm and joy that is anathema to me. Ugh. Just listen to them as they paraphrase panels.
For those who don't have the issue, Thor's expression is pretty much that of anyone who reads this issue once you're done with it.
Yeah.
You there. Everyone's sick of this and sick of you. I am pointing where you need to go, which is away from here and away from this issue.
And I do love that first panel. It's pretty neat. I like it. Batman going swoosh.
Explain exposition.
I have no idea what's happening.
In this one, it looks like Superman's tearing a bridge down.
Why is he destroying a bridge?
I think this is part of his eventual reign of terror.
Oh, maybe.
Another thing, the bridge. Screw that.
And comment on all their favorite comics.
Everything about this issue is just gollywhackers. He's causing huge amounts of property damage, which, by the way, at least when the Fantastic Four does it, they pay the city back. Superman's not going to pay anybody back for this.
Married with Comics, available directly at marriedwcomics.libsyn.com, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasts, or find us on Facebook or Twitter by searching for Married with Comics Podcast.
We've got everything you need.
G.I. Joe.
And welcome back. Hope you enjoy those promos. So let's go ahead and get into the next section talking about G.I. Joe, the cartoon.
Yo, Joe! He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe is there. It's G.I. Joe against Cobra the enemy, fighting to save the day. He never gives up, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe's there! G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe!
This episode was entitled An Eye for an Eye, directed once again by John Gibbs and Terry Lennon. They did last month's. Writer was Steve Mitchell and Barbara Petty. First aired November the 8th of 1985. The synopsis: while in the midst of transporting valuables, G.I. Joe gets ambushed by Cobra, causing them to accidentally set a remote cabin in the mountains on fire. This makes the cabin's owner, Charles Fairmont, demand retribution against Cobra, and Lady J helps him out with his revenge. This was an eye for an eye. So, Brad, since I'm sure you watched this one,
I did.
Do you have thoughts on Eye for an Eye?
I watched the heck out of this one. I should let you know, anytime there's an episode of your great podcast coming up, because they were covering this episode, I always give myself some time, usually on a Saturday morning, and pour myself a bowl of cereal, my Lucky Charms or my Golden Grams, and I sit on the floor in front of the TV, and I queue up the old Roku box, and I find the episode, and I watch it, and I pretend it's 1985 or whatever. So it is always a pleasure to watch these episodes. I know I and the others on the podcast tend to beat up on them a lot, but, we do it in a loving way. This is a pretty solid story, I thought, actually, especially for the cartoon, which veers into silliness. There's a lot of silliness in this one, but I think at its core, there's a really interesting story here, because I was always the one who wondered what it would be like to be just a normie civilian in a G.I. Joe story or a Star Wars story or even a Marvel story. I lived in New York City for many years, and always around New York Comic Con time, near the Jacob Javits Center, you'd always see the cosplayers out and about on the streets having hot dogs or, grabbing a coffee or whatever. So you'd see Spider-Man and Captain America, and you'd see lots of Black Widows and Electras and other Marvel and DC characters. And it was kind of like the New York City version of Marvel you'd be walking through. And, the point kind of still stands that it would really kind of suck to be a supporting character in one of these worlds, because you're either the victim of a nefarious Cobra plot or a bystander whose house gets blown to pieces in a battle. And I do like what they did with this one, the furious father seeking payback for his family. as a parent, obviously, I empathize, and anybody does my wife or son dirty, I'm a writer and I'm creative for a living, which means I have that particular skill set to come up with creative ways to get back at someone. And this gets to the core of my one issue with this story is that, if my kid's in the hospital under observation for smoke inhalation or some other injury, I am not leaving that place. I am not going anywhere outside a 5-mile radius of the hospital building. I'm going to leave the big stuff to the experts, to the doctors and the nurses at the hospital, to the police, the firefighters, and the GI Joe team. I'm certainly not going to infiltrate a military base to cover intel about terrorists who caused my family to be injured and my home destroyed. And I'm certainly not going to convince one of the members of the GI Joe team to steal a Sky Striker or fly me to the bad guy terrorist's super secret island fortress to go get revenge. Because, it's this balance, and, for your concern for your loved one's well-being usually should supersede everything else. And the military and the authorities say, we got this. I'm just like standing back and going, okay, you guys go do it and let me know how it goes. But that would not make an exciting story. So instead, we have this one, which is actually a pretty entertaining one for the most part. I enjoyed seeing Zap, one of the OGs, in action, and I appreciated seeing Lady J getting a front and center story of her own. And of course, this being G.I. Joe, the cartoon, we're not going to get Death Wish. It's still pretty silly, but it's, I think, hamstrung a bit by the fact that Mr. Fairmont is, if you pardon my French, a bit of a dick. Like, he's angry, and he should be angry, but I think the mistake here is because he's such a jerk, he's kind of unsympathetic, and he doesn't really learn anything or change. He's sort of once a jerk, always a jerk. You'd think he maybe learns, yes, leave the soldiering to the professionals, but he kind of doesn't. And even when things kind of work out in the end, he's still, this is not over. I'm going to go seethe in a corner and, fire off angry letters to my editor or to the editor of the local newspaper and stuff like that. So it's kind of, I think they kind of missed an opportunity to have a bit of a lesson here, but they always did have the knowing is half the battle PSAs. So maybe it was something about smoke detectors or whatever that issue. They don't include those on the streams, unfortunately.
You've actually got a website I go to, and according to the website I go to joeguide.com. It shows in it for this episode here, when it originally aired, they don't know what it was. There's no information on what it was originally, so it may not have been one that month. It just says unknown.
Yeah, if someone out there listening knows, drop Aaron an email because I'm kind of curious to know. Oh, the only one thing I wanted to add to it before I let Jared pull out his notes and go to town on this one is the Cobra weapon is called the Power Destroyer, which is kind of a really lame name for a Cobra weapon after the Mass Device and the Weather Dominator and the Pyramid of Darkness, because this is 1985, 1986, and the Power Station is right there and contemporary for the year. If anybody other than me recalls that Duran Duran, Robert Palmer side project. I'm probably the only one, but if you remember the songs,
I'm with you.
You do, yeah. All right, good. Because if you remember Some Like It Hot or their cover of the T-Rex song "Bang a Gong," it's a great album. You can probably pick it up for $1 in a used bin somewhere. But yeah, the Power Station, much better than Power Destroyer.
Some like it hot and some sweat when the heat is on. Some feel the heat and decide that they can't go on.
And Jared, I'm assuming you don't have any notes on this, so notes. Hey, there's notes on there.
You'll notice very short because, like my esteemed colleague said, this is a good issue. It's one of the least silly episodes that we have ever done. And now, my notes. All right. I noted that Cobra at the beginning actually set up a pretty decent ambush. If they were good soldiers in any way, shape, or form, they would have totally won that day because their ambush was legit. But they, I don't know, still managed to screw it up. Let's see. Oh, this is my favorite goof from the episode. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but at the beginning, when Mrs. Fairmont, I think she's making cookies, she takes them out of the oven by putting her hands right through the windows of the oven, grabbing the tray and pulling it right. She never opens the oven. She goes right into the window and pulls the cookies out. I thought, that's fascinating.
It's a new type of oven that the window opens automatically, and
I guess, right into the window, which I thought was kind of funny.
That's why the cookies took 8 hours.
Yes. I also made a note that Lady J should be an Olympic athlete as well. She throws those javelins at moving aircraft. That is impressive. I wrote down that I need an action figure of this angry father, who I later found out his name is Charlie Fairmont. And, I like where, who was it? Oh, it was Lady J. She puts they go to the island, she puts Mr. Fairmont in like a cave. She goes, "Stay put, you'll be safe here." Takes 3 steps and gets captured by Cobra. So those were my only laughable moments. Everything else, I thought, like I said, this was the least silly one. I think it was the most humanized one. And while I was kind of joking when I wrote I need an action figure of the angry father, they really could have done something with that. They, he was like, this is not over now. Again, cartoons and comics didn't really blend, but it would have been kind of cool to see it maybe carried over in the comic or even in the cartoon, where Charlie Fairmont joins the military and works hard and becomes a special ops and becomes a Joe. I mean, we could have followed his whole origin story, and that would have been very, very cool. But I mean, again, they're just cranking out 30-minute cartoons, so I'm not mad at them about it. I just think it's a really cool opportunity, and I think Brad was kind of hinting at that earlier. You've got that ending of I'm not done with this. Well, he would have looked less turdish if the follow-on to that was he joins the military and he works hard and he becomes an elite soldier. If this was his impetus, that would be very cool.
Yeah, no, I agree that. Again, like you said, it was a 30-minute cartoon to sell a toy. They didn't really think about, like Larry was doing, having an overarching story. And very few of these episodes refer back to one another. But no, I do agree it would have been nice to have him show up later on as a Joe.
Or at least a chaplain's assistant.
In fact, yeah, speaking of which, on the role-playing game I was doing, my second character I made on there was actually, I did a Shipwreck's nephew from the episode where they showed him. I had him as a grown adult, as a member of the Juice.
Right. Right.
Well, I like that. No, like you guys have said, it was a great episode. It was especially for the cartoon that, as Brad said earlier, we tend to crap on these quite a bit, but we crap with love because for a lot of us, this was our first. I know this was my first entry to GI Joe was the cartoon. Led to the toys and the comic books, which led to bigger comic books, which led to me talking to you guys here on a Sunday afternoon. So you can blame the G.I. Joe cartoon for me having to deal with me today. Oh, but
Hasbro, no.
But yeah, this was a more serious. I wonder the Joes or the nondescript Joes that he took out to get into the base. Maybe they need to rethink some of their security protocols or some of their training maneuvers or whatever. If just an ordinary people can get in, an ordinary guy.
He basically used the "hey, look over there" method with the MP at the front gate.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that easy to get into a military base, Jared. Maybe you can test that or not. Can I do that?
It is not. And if you remind me at the end of the episode, I will tell you a funny story about trying to get on base at one point in my career. But I don't want to derail you.
I'm used to that. But no. No.
I'm sorry. Again, I don't want to derail you again.
Because I'm easily derailed. But yeah. No, like Brad and Jared have both said, it would have been maybe better if we would have had a follow episode later on. If Hasbro would have made a character or a toy out of this character later down the road, would have been interesting to see. But again, he is getting a bit older, so I don't know how well that would work out, joining the military later in life like that. I guess we have to look at someone that's older that's in the military. He says, looking at Jared. He didn't start out old. I'm sure he started out younger, but...
No, I was young when I joined.
I'm just giving Jared crap. But anyway...
That's a young man's game.
Yeah. And that's maybe why he didn't, because, again, he was a businessman or something. Had, a lot of money, it seems. So that may be the only drawback. But then again, we're talking about, the cartoon had, parrots all the time in it and pet wolves and...
As did this one, and we didn't bring that up.
Yes,
Polly,
yes. And then that's one of my, I don't know if it's a bad point, but one thing that, when Lady J, she maybe should have left work. Even I know she thought it was going to be an unarmed base or unmanned base she was taking them to, but it seems like she would have left a word or message or something because, again, even though she took him to an unmanned Cobra base, I'm sure sneaking a Sky Striker off of the base is going to get her in trouble. Again, maybe I'm wrong. I know Jared does on the weekends.
A little bit.
Jared takes Sky Strikers out for the flight on the weekend just to, shock the girls.
You never know.
But yeah, so she should have, maybe left word or something. So luckily we had Polly there to rat her out, I got a secret.
Polly's always such a turd on this show.
Which is probably why Larry didn't use them. But anyway.
I'm surprised Polly survives this long. One of the other Joes finally has enough and just says, Cobra did it, when Shipwreck comes around and finds Polly.
Oh, Raptor.
Pile of feathers.
Scallywag.
Raptor. What a Raptor's Falcons got him. I'm sorry, Shipwreck.
Come Christmas morning, the Christmas turkey is a little smaller than normal. But,
Hey, wait a minute.
But and Heinz Koch has joined us at the very end of the show. Hey, Heinz, glad you could join us, man. Better late than ever. Glad to have you on. But yeah, like I say, not a lot to really talk about this episode because it was a more in quotes serious episode that didn't have a lot of the hijinks and they still had some hijinks, but it didn't have as much as the wackiness, I guess, as Brad was saying, as we usually get out of the cartoon, which again, while we would poke fun at it, it is out of love because we do love these shows, but it is good occasionally getting the serious. I mean, I could see something like this showing up in the comic book at some point, this type of thing. So that's how, I don't want to say real world, but how more serious this was than what we normally get. No giant germs morphing into a giant creature or, Teletubby. I mean, furry fatals, photo fluffies, whatever the hell they're called. I always get those messed up. But anyways, yeah, a good episode. And, it was a good run, but this was one of the, I think, better episodes that wasn't a two-parter. Because as we talked about, I like the two-parters the best. But yeah, good episode.
Yeah, very solid, very solid.
So those are my thoughts on An Eye for an Eye. So unless you guys have other thoughts, Jared, you had a story you wanted to tell us about taking off a Sky Striker to impress the lake. I mean, sneaking on.
No.
Sneaking on to a base.
I was trying. A lot of bases were open bases for many, many years, which means you can just drive on any military base you wanted. And they got locked down about September 12th of 2001, as one might imagine.
Really?
And they've never opened back up. They were open bases for years and years and years. And then after September 11th, they really locked them down hard. And while they're not locked as hard, they are still locked. And it was shortly after the September 11th tragedy that me and my two friends, PJ and Brian, both of which are African American, that's going to be important to the story later on. We went off base to get a bunch of pizzas for this event we were having. And we got 60, 70 pizzas in the back of this car, right? And we pull up to the gate, and everybody's very serious again because this is not too long after September 11th. And they're like, ID cards, gentlemen. And we hand them all our ID cards. And because I'm a funny guy, I said to the gate guard, I said, I'm the white one, just in case you get confused. And without missing a beat, the gate guard goes, that's very funny, sir. I need you to go ahead, pull over here. We're going to inspect the car, which means they had to look inside of 65 pizza boxes. We were there forever. Brian and PJ are staring daggers at me like, oh, you had jokes. So that's my story. And so basically my jokes have ruined many lives, including yours, Aaron. So there you go.
That's a good story.
Yes,
that
that's
is a
why
good story. Come on.
I would probably do something similar and all the time. And
dude was not on my vibe. That guy had no appreciation for my humor.
Well, we find it funny if that counts for anything.
No, thanks, man.
Decades later, we're able to laugh at you.
I don't have a story anywhere near that level. I do have one about a turkey, though. Since we were talking about Polly and Raptor, and this is a very recent story. Here in New England, we have a lot of wild turkeys in the neighborhood. When the pandemic happened and everything was shut down, wildlife really flourished in our part of the state, and there was this colony, I guess for lack of a better word, of turkeys that live a couple streets over from us. And this year in particular, there's been this repeated pattern of every morning, usually between 5:45 and 6:30, when one of these turkeys will come around and it'll wake me up. I'll hear it clucking, gobbling. It'll be pecking at the windows because it'll see its reflection staring back at it, because turkeys are very stupid animals, and become a point of every morning. When is the damn turkey going to wake up? What time is it? If I hear the turkey, I know it's time to get up. And without a word of a lie, there is only one day this year that the turkey has not come around. And if either you can guess what day it was recently that the turkey was oddly silent.
I bet I know.
Yeah, I am not kidding. It was like, you could have seen tumbleweeds and just dead silence on Thanksgiving morning because the turkey wisely decided to maintain a low profile that day. So he was back the next day.
He wasn't so dumb.
He was back the next day and never did. The only day that I can recall where the turkey has not woken me up was Thanksgiving morning. So
he was laying low, man. He was like, "Not today. Today's not the day."
And you may get a peaceful Christmas morning also.
Maybe
another day he's going to probably hide out.
Well, legend holds that the first Thanksgiving was held not too far from where I live here in Massachusetts. And part of me also wonders if native tribes weren't onto something when they said, give the turkeys to the white man, these noisy, annoying birds, tell them to say, no, they're the ones you want to eat. We can kind of get rid of these things so we can get a little bit of rest in the morning. Yeah.
Not so dumb after all.
Not as dumb. Yeah, it's got to be an instinctive thing, like some sort of biological, some of those sort of internal clocks that they just know that this is the day not to draw too much attention to oneself.
Don't piss off the human. You may join our friend Fred that's missing. But anyways, so we had some story time today, and probably after the credits play, we'll probably have some extra outtakes that we talked about during the commercial break, but fun times. But anyways, it was great talking with you guys. Jared, if people want to hear more from you, where can they go?
Well, if you want to hear my podcasting adventures, they're mostly done at the Longbox Crusade or on Her Majesty's Secret podcast if you enjoy James Bond. But those are the two best places to find me, Longbox Crusade, on Her Majesty's Secret podcast. If you want to chat with me personally, I'm at Yard Sale Artist on the X, the Facebook, the Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. I have just advertised on social media the snow job that I drew on the page of an Army manual during this episode.
Nice.
I've advertised it for $30 as usual. If you come in and message me and say, "Hey, I want that snow job," and you mention the Real American Headcast where you saw it, you will get $5 off. So $25 to you if you feel like you need that snow job that I drew on today's episode.
Thank you very much for that, Jared. I appreciate you giving the viewers and listeners a discount on your stuff when they mention they saw it on the show.
No problem.
And again, as always, you do fantastic art. I love your artwork, man. It's wonderful. And Brad, if people want to hear more from you, where can they go?
They can go to bradabraham.com. That's where I do most of my my free writing. If they want to pay me for my writing, they can always pick up my novel Magicians Impossible, available in finer bookstores everywhere. Or they can check out my comic miniseries mixtape, which is available at Indie Planet. Just search for mixtape and it'll be right there.
And I've said it before. Yeah, I definitely recommend Magicians Impossible. It's a great story. I loved reading it, so I definitely recommend it. And as for myself, like I say, if you're listening to the show, feel free to give us a call and leave us a message. You can call us at 1-559-500-3182. Again, that's 559-500-3182. Call and leave us a message. What you think about the show? If we should get rid of Jared. I mean, any thoughts you guys may have on the show.
I'll call and say, "Can you get rid of Jared?"
I kid. But no, it's definitely give us a call. Let us know. I'm on the Facebook at facebook.com/GI Joe. I've also got my main show, which is at facebook.com/it's facebook.com/groups/GI Joe or facebook.com/group/Headcast Network. You can email me at gijoe@headspeaks.com. Right now, my Headcast Network website is down right now due to a billing issue. Apparently, much like I was telling these guys here a month or so ago, for some reason, my Gmail filter got really strong and it filtered everything from my hosting company. I missed that. I was missing emails from these guys. I emailed them. You guys want me on the show? Oh, yeah. I messaged Jared on text. I haven't heard from him. He's like, I replied to you. And I finally got looking in my spam folder and was, there it is. Crap.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Think we all know.
And then later on, I got looking and, oh, crap, I got things for my hosting thing I missed in there. Oh, Lord. It got really crazy. But so right now, you can go to gijoe@headspeaks.com if you want to send an email. I'm on Twitter. Just look for it's at GI Joe. X, but I don't do much on X. I don't do much XC. I mean, I don't do much on X, but it's there when I think about it. But anyways, definitely join us. We've got this show, and then every other month. Well, every other month on Bravo Team, we're covering special missions. In between issues or episodes, we'll be talking about something else. I'll probably start covering, like I said, the versus Transformers and the G.I. Joe Order of Battle here shortly on the Bravo Teams also. I got my main show, Head Speaks, where I talk about comic books and anything geeky. Right now I'm in the middle of looking at The Power of the Atom, great series. I've got Task Force X, where I'm currently looking at the Suicide Squad from the late 80s, early 90s. The Starman Adventure Show, where I'm looking at the Will Payton Starman. I'm on the final year of that journey. And then I've got the wife and I are doing Star Bright Project. We're looking at the Quantum Leap TV show. Again, that one there's going through some changes due to the new series that came out. I'm still working on that. And then also there's Voyagers Cast, which we're coming up at the final couple episodes, looking at Voyagers from 1982, which was another time travel show. So definitely check us out. Let me know what you think. I guess that'll do it until next month. I do want to give a special thanks to the guys in the chat. Kevin had shown up for a little bit, Jim and Hines. Thank you guys very much for joining us in the chat. It's always a pleasure hearing from you guys over there. And extra special thanks to Jared and Brad for taking time out on this Sunday after Thanksgiving to talk some G.I. Joe with me. Again, as I don't have a lot of friends in the area in the G.I. Joe. I guess I'll add that also, but
I was paid to be here.
We can just leave it. I don't have a lot of friends, so it's nice to be able to talk to you guys G.I. Joe at least once a month. So thank you for joining me. Until next time, remember, knowing is half the battle.
Yo.
Cobra stop the right material. Cobra stop the perfect home. Cobra Terradrome. Cobra Terradrome. Cobra's got a threat more evil than G.I. Joe has ever known. Cobra Terradrome. We're ready for the Joes. Launch the firebat. G.I. Joe. Won't know. What hit them? G.I. Joe. American hero.
Will the Cobra Terradrome be the beginning of the end for G.I. Joe? Find out in Marvel Comics.
Look! Smoke! Let's get out of here! Ow!
Don't go out that door.
It's barbecue!
You might let in poisonous gases. Stuff something under the door. And stay low. That way you avoid the heat and gases that rise upward. Remember, if a fire breaks out in your home, always test the door first. If it's hot, find another exit or yell for help.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, is available monthly on iTunes, Stitcher, and at headspeaks.com. All characters and stories are owned and trademarked by their respective owners. We claim no ownership other than our opinions. All audio and images are used for entertainment purposes and falls under fair use. We make no money from this headcast. For more of the monthly G.I. Joe, check out the IDW series. For the stories we're covering, look for the comics and trade paperbacks. Let us know what you think. Send us an email letting us know your thoughts. Joe's dismissed.
Yo, Joe.
Man, on top of everything that you just mentioned about all these Joe publications coming out from, like, I think Tales of G.I. Joe, like, I think you mentioned reprints, and then they had, like, the G.I. Joe magazine that you could subscribe to, which I'm dang near a full run of now.
Oh, very nice.
And then they had, I don't know when they were releasing the digests. Might have been slightly prior to this, but you guys will probably know. But, like, so much Joe content. Like, it was so overwhelming that I picked up at a yard sale some issues of this guy was a big Thundercats fan, and he had Thundercats magazine because they did Thundercats magazine, G.I. Joe magazine, and He-Man magazine because these were the riding high toys. And the last issue this guy that I bought at the yard sale from had of Thundercats was like the 7th issue or something like that. It has a note on the cover that says, "Hey, unfortunately, Thundercats magazine has been canceled, but here, have an issue of G.I. Joe instead." It's like it overcame Thundercats magazine, basically. Like, it's crazy how popular it is.
So it looks like the G.I. Joe Comics Magazine Digest, which is one that you're referring to, came out. It was published December of 1986. And this issue was
okay, so right about the same time.
So a couple months down the road, they started doing those.
Yeah.
So much Joe in circulation, man. People just could not get enough of it.
Well, I was wondering if it was kind of a bit like a delayed reaction because the line debuted in 1982 and the comics, I think, did well and the toys did well, but they didn't really start doing like stupid business till 83 when the the second wave of stuff came out with the swivel arm. I think the swivel arm battle grip does not get nearly enough credit when you're talking about the evolution of the action figure. With a bit more articulation, it allowed you to pose them differently, be a bit more dynamic with it. And I think just it was G.I. Joe kind of was popular, but it didn't start becoming really popular for another couple of years. And then there was this huge demand for those early issues of the comic, which were impossible to find. I know I'm the old, telling a boring story again about paying $20 for G.I. Joe number 2 in 1985, which is like $40 today for a comic book.
Right.
And that was the going price for that issue at the time. I remember it was like the first issue was really overprinted, so it wasn't too hard to get that one. But issues 2, 3, and 4 were really difficult to acquire, and then it kind of leveled off from there as it got going. Because we never thought about someday that they would be collecting these in a trade paperback or hard collection. If you didn't get it, you didn't get it. And for me, collecting the book at this time, I think by this point, by issue 53, I had every issue from 1 to 53. But it took a few years to track them all down, because you physically had to go to a comic book store and see if they had it, and then see if you had enough money for it, and if you were going to plunk down for it. So it was a different time. It was a different era. So consider yourself lucky today that you got digital.
Yeah, we're looking for the back issues. I was trying to find issue 2, and one of the comic guys, it was like $20 book or so, and he said, I guess, supposedly there was like a warehouse, either fire or got water damaged. It was water damaged where they were storing them at, and so a lot of them got damaged. That's why that one's a little bit higher than everything else. So, but yeah, Tales of G.I. Joe came out in January of '88.
Oh, okay.
So we're about a year and a half away from the Tales of G.I. Joe reprints. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we had Jim Mill. Thanks for joining us, Jim. Jim's in the chat. He says,
Jim.
Don't forget G.I. Joe Transformers was released around this time. That was briefly mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I plan on covering that at some point on the Bravo team here next 6 months. I'm going to try to get to those.
Depending on how you want that episode of Bravo team to go, the G.I. Joe and the Transformers ones, you may or may not want me involved in it, because I could have some.
I think you've already answered the question there.
Oh, you got something to say about it? I want to have you on. So even if it's not flattering, because again, honestly, I like when we like, it's funner to talk about it when, we like it. We're not shitting on it, but sometimes, if someone doesn't like something and other people do like it, that makes for much more interesting conversation than everything Brad said,
Hey, this is what I do here.
No, I would say if you like Salt, you definitely want me around for issue 57 with the arrival of a guy who dresses up like a giant bird. I'm going to have a lot of stuff to say there.
I may not have you on. That was actually
that's one of Aaron's favorites.
That was my first issue of G.I. Joe, as I've talked about. I bought off the newsstand, and Jim said he was sorting through a room full of comics. That's why he's late.
It's your first issue, and by the sounds of it, it's going to be my last appearance on this podcast.
No, you're on this episode before that one. I will not have you crapping on Raptor, my friend.
Well,
I'm going to have a code name for that issue. I just came with a code name. Oh, there he is. Yeah. There he is. It just as a teaser for that when we do that episode. I didn't so much eject from G.I. Joe toys at that point with the arrival of Raptor, as I strapped on some giant wings and I jumped off of a high roof.
Oh, very nice.
Brett said something interesting, as he usually does, about how people are blessed to have digital now, which is true. But Brad, you know this to be true. While digital is great for convenience, there was nothing like finding that issue that you didn't have on the hunt in the wild.
No.
I feel bad that some people will never know that feeling.
It is becoming a extremely rare thing, because I do read a lot of comics digitally now, just because I do not have a lot of spare time and money really to go to the comic book store every week. There's some books I still buy just because I've been collecting the trades or whatever for a while, but digital is great for convenience. But yeah, it's kind of, like on the weekend when I popped into the Walmart and walked out with unintentionally with the classified Grunt and Rock and Roll. Sure, you can order them online. You can probably get them for a better price online, but I gotta tell you, there's something about with my kid wandering through, checking out the toy section with them and everything, and seeing G.I. Joe figures that I actually kind of wanted on a rack and going, oh, I could just walk out with these right now. And it reminded me of back in the day going into Sears or Kmart or wherever and going into the toy section and seeing all the new Joe toys or the new Star Wars toys or whatever just laid out there. And you knew you could convince your mom or your dad to let you get at least a couple to take with you. It was an exciting time. And it doesn't really happen anymore. Now it's just like they'll mail it to you in a bubble mailer where it'll get crushed somewhere between the warehouse and your home. Yeah.
Well, especially when you, like you said, it's hard to find a lot of these figures at the store anymore. I mean, yeah, there was one or two rock and rolls at my local Walmart, and I didn't have the money. One went back to get it when I had the money. They were out, and all they got like 5 or 6 shipwrecks now, which I own one of. So it's I go in and be able to buy one off the store. It's a little more than buying. I can go to get on Amazon probably cheaper or somewhere, but there's a joy in finding them in the store. And over in the chat, Jim says, Jared, no job is a fitting sketch for the weather here in Michigan.
It's my wintertime episode, man. There's a theme here.
And what were you going to say, Brad?
Related to that, but I've started quietly searching for the original issues of the Adventures of Indiana Jones comic book from Marvel back in the day, in the 80s, a lot of which were illustrated by Herb Trimpe.
I know someone who has them all hardbound in 2 volumes.
Oh, dear. I wonder who that person could be.
There's a very good chance that there will be a podcast around that on the Longbox Network. So I'm marking Brad down for a guest spot.
I would have lots to say about Indiana Jones and comics. Absolutely.
Excellent.
And Jim over the chat says he personally prefers to find his comics and toys out in the wild.